This episode is proudly supported by Crunch. Running a hospitality business isn't for the faint-hearted. Between ordering stock, scheduling rosters, paying bills, motivating your team, and keeping customers happy, there's a lot on your plate. It's no surprise that business planning often gets put on the back burner. Well, here's something that can help. Introducing Crunch, a new app to help simplify the business side of hospo. With Crunch, you get access to practical, bite-sized education, proven strategies, and a supportive community of hospo owners just like you. When it comes to the Crunch, if you're looking for proven ways to build a successful, sustainable business, Crunch has you covered. Try Crunch now. To get 14 days free, just head to crunchhospo.com.au.
Like, it's totally understandable for restaurants to not have a sole pastry chef, but at the end of the day, I think it really brings in the revenue, and people get excited when they see a great dessert menu. So I think restaurants and hospitality venues really need to invest in more pastry chefs.
Hey everyone, it is Dani Valent here with you for an episode of Dirty Linen. We chat food, we chat hospitality, we chat all the good things and some of the tricky things as well. I am really grateful to have you here for this episode. I really don't take your time and attention for granted. If you are interested in what we do at Dirty Linen and across the Deep in the Weeds podcast network, please sign up to our newsletter. You can find the links in all our socials. We love hearing from you as well. If you've got an idea for an episode, maybe you think you should be on, let us know. We would love to have a chat. Today's guest is a great person that I was doing a food market recently. I was hosting the food stage where people were doing demos, and I thought that I was doing a demo with MoVida chef, Kane Vucon, but then someone else popped up on stage as well, and I didn't even know she was going to be there, but she was such a breath of fresh air, such a dynamic personality. And Angelica Luliano is our guest today. She is the Group Pastry Chef at Melbourne's iconic MoVida. Angelica, welcome to Dirty Linen.
Hey, how are you? Thank you so much.
It's so great to have you on the show, and it was so good to meet you at the Little Food Market. It was a great event at Melbourne's exhibition buildings, and I met you just before our session, and then I didn't know though that you were coming on stage, and there you were, and you're so awesome and energetic. How do you introduce yourself when people meet you?
As a group pastry chef at MoVida, a really busy person doing as many things as I can, I guess, in the hospitality world. Yeah,
that's fantastic. So what are some of the things that you get up to?
So I am the Proud to be a Chef mentor for 2025. Also the co-chair for the Victorian Young Chefs Club, brand ambassador for Career Professional.
So tell us, Angelica, you start your life as a chef, but then you've obviously added things to your portfolio along the way. What is it about, how do you see being a chef?
I think it's, as we all kind of know, it's a hectic job and crazy environment to work in, but it's also super rewarding. I think there's so many different avenues that come along with being a chef that are really great.
And I mean, so you mentioned you're a mentor for Proud to be a Chef. Tell us what Proud to be a Chef is, and what does it mean to be a mentor?
Yeah, so Proud to be a Chef is a competition for apprentices and young chefs, and it's basically a 4-day experience where they get masterclasses and events, and they get to compete and put themselves on a plate. And being a mentor for that it's really rewarding, really exciting for myself. It's a bit of imposter syndrome, I'm not going to lie, but it's really great to give back to the community and share my knowledge with the up-and-coming chefs.
Yeah, so great. Don't worry, we've all got imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Was competing, I mean, did you compete yourself in Proud to be a Chef?
I actually didn't. I did a few competitions back in my apprenticeship.
Tell us about the competitions that you were in and what the experiences were like, Angelica.
Yeah, so I did maybe 3 competitions. One of them was Golden Chef's Hat, and I did that with a couple of friends, and they were great. Really intense. They really put my mind to the test and made me think outside of the box. So it's a really great way to, challenge myself and be better. They take up a lot of time, but good time to really think and be better as a chef.
I mean, tell us about, maybe go into a bit more detail. Like, what is it about doing a competition that you can then take forward into your working life, whether it's about skills or about attitude or about confidence? Like, what does it actually leave you with?
I think it leaves you with the thought and the knowledge of that you're able to achieve something that you may not think that you could have. Like, I did a cookery competition. Even though I'm qualified in both cookery and pastry, I went into it thinking that I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I was honestly quite petrified, but the result that I put up at the end of the day, I was really happy with. And it made me kind of sit back and look at myself and be like, I can do these kind of things if I just push myself and do it, which is really great about competitions in general because it makes you do that. It makes you take yourself out of a comfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, can you remember a dish that you made in a competition that you were really proud of?
Yeah, so I did a barramundi ceviche with a squid ink coral and a egg emulsion, and I practiced for about 10 hours straight prior to the event doing it. And on the day, it didn't work out perfectly, but I was just proud of myself that I was able to put that dish up. And for something that I wasn't used to, I wasn't used to filleting fish or doing any of that kind of stuff, but I did it and it looked beautiful in the day. So I was pretty happy with myself.
Oh, that's so good. Do you what's your stress levels when you're doing something like that? Can you take the same sort of sense of organization and calm that you might look for in a kitchen into a competition setting? Or is it just all bets are off? It's just a totally different experience?
I think the very first comp that you do, you get a bit frantic and frazzled, but then you learn how to channel that stress and that scared emotion, and you kind of be able to focus that into your food. And I guess that's what I did. I was able to figure out how to, overcome my panic and overcome my stress and really focus in on the food that I was creating and just try and put on my best. And that's helped me as well, in work in the kitchens now, just to be a bit more calmer and take a step back, breathe, and get back into it.
I'd love to dig back into your career. You've worked at some really amazing restaurants, but let's start with your current workplace, MoVida. What's it like to be the Group Pastry Chef? Tell us about, what a week might look like.
Yeah, it's really rewarding being the Group Pastry Chef at MoVida. So I'm lucky enough to work across all 3 venues. So we've got MoVida Original, Next Door, and A Key. And I'm able to put up, different menus at each venue, work with a whole range of chefs. So it's fresh faces every week. I work across the 3 throughout the week, so I get to move around. It's really good, and especially learning off Frank Mora and learning Spanish food, which is different for me because I haven't done Spanish food before. But it's been a great experience.
It's an interesting pastry program across MoVida where there are some absolute classics. I bet your crema catalana is pretty iconic. But then there is room to work with seasonal ingredients. How does that balance across tradition and creativity?
Yeah, well, so we obviously have our iconic and traditional desserts. So we have got our churros and our flans, which never come off. But then I am able to work with, flavors from Spain and new ideas that are out in the world and in the industry at the moment. So I can play with new techniques and kind of bring that into my desserts and give people the experience of the flavors of Spain, but with a different twist to it. and just really exciting.
Oh, give us an example. I love the sound of that.
Okay, so I've got two at the moment, which I quite love. I've got a quince tarte tatin. So it's using quince and saffron, so Spanish flavors, but with a French dessert with a brown butter crumb. And we have a Carajillo chocolate dessert. So Carajillo is orange brandy, chocolate and coffee. And this one's a coffee chocolate mousse with a caramel and a blood orange frozen carpaccio on top. So it's those Spanish flavors, but just presented in a different experience.
Oh, I would just feel like coming straight to MoVida and starting with dessert. They sound so good. I'm such a fan of quince, and that sounds absolutely amazing. Who does not love tarte tatin? Oh, my goodness. So, I mean, you mentioned that Frank's a good mentor and you're learning about Spanish flavors. How does that actually happen? Is it sort of like, here's Spanish ingredients 101 today, Angelica, or is it up to you to go and research and sort of put it all together yourself?
Well, it's a bit of both. So, I'll either go to Frank with some of my ideas and we workshop them together, or he'll come to me with a recipe that, he's done in the past, or he's got in one of his cookbooks and he'll ask me to recreate it. So we work together on coming up with new dishes or new flavors, or like revamping one of the old recipes. There's a lot of teamwork, which I really love.
Yeah, it sounds really good. I mean, we've talked a lot about hospitality culture on this podcast recently. I mean, we always talk about it. It's definitely a hot topic at the moment, particularly. What's it like for you in and out of these different kitchens and coming into such an established group? How have you felt supported and respected?
I don't know. I think everyone is just so encouraging and really respectful, and, everyone has their own different skill sets and knowledge, and everyone kind of works with each other. And it's really nice to work with chefs that, you can bounce off each other with, or that are, some are really interested in learning pastry. So it's really nice to be able to teach them and, learn off them as well.
Yeah. And what's it like coming in and out of the different kitchens? Have you felt like you've had to, establish yourself, like that people respect you for your skills and experience? Has that been a challenge?
Yeah. So it's always hard coming into new kitchens and, being a fresh face, or moving across everywhere and not being, settled in one restaurant. So it does have its challenges, and, you've got to build up the rapport with people and all that kind of thing. But it does take time, and I think I'm slowly getting there. I don't know, I do think it's quite challenging, because it's kind of like you've got to prove yourself. But I think that's also in any restaurant or kitchen that you go to, you're never just going to be a hot shot as soon as you walk in. It always takes time. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what sort of advice would you have for somebody else in that position? They get a job, they walk in on their first day, they've been employed, because the whoever's employing them believes that they have the skills to do the job. But then I guess you have to find your own path. What sort of advice would you have for people starting a new job?
I think my best advice would be honestly just to stay true to yourself and who you are, because you don't want to change yourself to fit a mold or fit a group of people. You are who you are, and you're good at what you do, and you've been chosen or picked for a reason. So stay strong, strong and true to that. And eventually, people either warm up to you, or some might not, and that's fine. But if you are your true self, your work and your talents will shine through, and you'll get there eventually, which is all you can really do, honestly.
I'm really interested, Angelica, in the fact that you're both, you're a savoury and a sweet chef. Tell us, take us back to your childhood and where cooking sat for you. Was it a childhood with lots of food and laden tables, and were you standing at your other, relatives' hips learning everything?
Yeah, pretty much. So I grew up in an Italian household. My nonna lives next door to my parents. The fence is knocked down. It's a proper Italian household that you can imagine, kitchen in the garage. I grew up making pasta with my nonna and biscuits with my other nonna. Mum would always have food on the table every night and making desserts and all this wonderful food. So I grew up around it, and that really sparked a passion for me. I honestly didn't think that I would get into cookery or patisserie during high school. I was really stuck on being in childcare or sport. And then I did hospitality for my vet course and I fell in love with it. And then just being able to pick it up so easily and have the knowledge that I had from my family when growing up really helped me, like, give me a concrete idea that I wanted to do hospitality, like cooking.
It's amazing. So what was the pathway for you?
So I did my vein schools at Homesglen, and then I went into a pastry apprenticeship for 3 years, and then I moved along to a various amount of restaurants and patisseries, and yeah.
What about your chef's apprenticeship? Like, where did that fit in?
So I did my cookery at TAFE, so I got my certificates through that, and then I decided to continue patisserie over cookery.
Why did you decide that?
I think cookery was fun, and you learn great like basic skills like poultry and stocks and sauces and meat. But then patisserie was exciting. It was colourful. It was so many different flavours and texture combinations, and it just drew me into the fact that you could play with it and have a lot of fun, which you can do with cookery too, but patisserie is just that little extra spark, and it gives really a lot of joy to people at the end of the meal, which I loved giving that to people.
Yeah, that's so good. I feel sad for pastry chefs if people don't have dessert. Like, do you sometimes look out at tables and you're like, guys, no, don't ask for the bill. Come on.
No, I get so upset. Like, it's the perfect way to end a night. And I know that people get so full on like entrees and mains, but yeah, dessert's just so exciting, and it's just that little sweet note that will just settle everything. And but hopefully more people start to eat dessert at the end of the meal or at the start. Like, I think it's a culture that we really need to get people into.
Well, it's actually so good in Spain and Portugal and other parts of Europe. Like, this whole idea of cake for breakfast is something I really can get behind.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, whenever I go to Italy, my family always give us like croissants and donuts for breakfast. And I'm like, this is amazing.
It's really good. It's like such a feel-good way to start the day. So, Angelica, you've worked at some pretty amazing kitchens like the Langham Hotel, Dinner by Heston. You were head pastry chef at Hotel Sorrento. What are some highlights that you could share with us from your varied experience?
I think serving all the customers that I did and creating close connections with them was one of my favourite parts of different places I've worked. But also work with some really great chefs. Like, I worked with, George Columbaris, Gareth at Dinner by Heston. Just all the people that I've met along the way have really made it worthwhile for me.
Yeah, it was Gareth Whitten from who now has Tarts on also, was at Dinner by Heston. And Gareth has really, I suppose, shone a light on the skills and precision involved in creating amazing tarts. When I look at his tarts, and I've got his book and it's amazing, I think, well, I'm not going to, this book and watching him do it does not make me want to make tarts. It makes me want to go and eat his tarts. Like, where do you see that balance between, I suppose, learning, appreciating the skills and trying to replicate them as a home cook?
Well, I think you get the best, both ways are incredible. Learning if someone that has the skills already made and the knowledge already there, you get to embrace all of that and take all that in. But then when you get to do it yourself, you get to experiment as well, because you can follow a recipe, but then you can also add your own flair and your own touch to it, which I think is a really fun point of cooking and, reading a recipe, because you just get to put your own personality into it. Yeah,
that's true. But yes, I mean, even as you're speaking, I think, you're just like a really good chef that, you would have the skills to start putting your spin on it, where I would just be like following the recipe as much as I could. But then also I feel like I'm a bit of a haphazard cook. Like, okay, I'll tell you, I just went in a cake competition, Angelica. Now, it's not like proud to be a chef. It was at the Melbourne Jewish Food Festival on the weekend, and I entered the honey cake competition. Honey cake is like, it's coming up to Rosh Hashanah, which is Jewish New Year, and it's traditional to eat honey sweet things to hope for a sweet new year. So there was this honey cake competition. I was one of 14 entrants, and we had to put our cakes up on the on the shelves where they could all be judged. And it was absolutely terrifying because, to be honest, I'm a bit of a hack baker, and I didn't have quite enough flour, so I added a bit of spelt. I didn't have, I thought I had oil, but then I only had butter, and you're not really supposed to use butter, but I did. I just, really wanted to be part of this competition. I didn't want to embarrass myself. I knew I wasn't going to win, but I just didn't want to have cake shame. But
the thing is, like, you gave it a go. So, like,
I gave it a go. My cake looked very humble compared to some of the beautiful creations, but I was proud to be there in amongst it.
Yeah, well, that's super important though.
And I tasted my cake at the end. It didn't win, but it wasn't a disaster. It was pretty nice.
We love that.
Yep. I suppose let's take this back to professional chefs who are perhaps starting out in their careers, who are having, perhaps my anxiety about joining a competition. Why would you encourage them to give it a go?
Well, I think just like from what you just said, like, you were proud of what you made, and it's that feeling of accomplishment. And like, even if it didn't go to plan, it wasn't perfect, like, you still did it, and you still did something incredible and fun and out of your comfort zone and something different. And I think it's super important to challenge yourself. Like, we can't just stay on the same road our whole life, and we need something to get us to express, who we are and what we do and what we love to do. And doing these little competitions and challenges and something different really helps make that happen.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to enter the honey cake competition next year. So
you know what to do next year. So
I'll slowly improve over the decades. Angelica, where do you think desserts are going these days? Like, do you think we're looking more seasonal, more classic? Do you think we're looking at more, elaborate creations? Where do you think things are going?
I think a lot of restaurants are going back to the classics and, just doing them really well. But then it's like 50-50. You see, people doing absolutely beautiful classics. Then there's other restaurants that are taking a bit of a risk and trying something different. I think it's really difficult to find a good dessert these days. It's hard to find restaurants with qualified pastry chefs who are dedicated to those sections, which is a bit sad. I think it's the industry, it's going really, really well, but to find people with those precise skills is a bit hard. Yeah.
I think that's such a good point. I think even in some very good restaurants, the pastry still can feel like a bit of an afterthought, and they're not putting the resources into having a dedicated pastry chef. I think a lot of chefs at a certain level feel like they're really good at what they do. Why can't they just do desserts? But I think there is definitely a lot to be said for investing in a proper pastry section.
Yeah, definitely. It elevates, the menu and the diner's experience at the end of the day. But, there's this whole difficulty of inflation and, costs and wages, and it's hard to find or employ someone that is just dedicated to pastry because, their skills may not be able to be used in other sections. So, it's totally understandable for restaurants to not have a sole pastry chef, but at the end of the day, I think it really brings in the revenue, and people get excited when they see a great dessert menu. So I think restaurants and hospitality venues really need to invest in more pastry chefs.
Yeah, because, I think part of the reason people don't save room for dessert or find room for dessert is that sometimes desserts are not amazing. So I feel like, that investment is the lack of investment is letting down people such as yourself who are dedicated to that part of the menu.
Yeah, but hopefully we start to see change, and
And I guess, when you've got a small group like MoVida, or I think about the Tipo group, like some of those small groups operating at a high level, you can have someone such as yourself who's a pastry chef across the venues.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one way to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well, you've definitely given me a lot to think about. Angelica, really appreciate your time chatting to us today. We'll see you soon for a quince tarte tatin. And all the best being a mentor for Proud to be a Chef. Anybody who has you looking over their shoulder and whispering words of advice and calm and encouragement is very lucky. So thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you so much, Dani.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This